Welcome to the It's Time podcast with your host, Professor Dale Feinauer from the University of Wisconsin-Oshkosh College of Business Graduate Programs.
Welcome to the It's Time podcast, an offering of the UW-Oshkosh College of Business Graduate Programs. Once again, we're here at A.J. Armstrong Studios to help throw a little fuel on the flame of your desire to enhance your business management skills. With me today is Keith Smith, Vonco Company, and I'd like Keith to start out. Tell me a little bit about Vonco. What is that company? What do you do?
Thanks, Dale. Thanks for having me. Vonco is a medical device contract manufacturer and a liquid-tight fluid consumer packaging company. We generally service top customers in the medical device arena. So some of the top ones out there: Johnson & Johnson, Medtronic. Those are some of the customers that we like to serve on the medical device side, and on the consumer side of packaging. We focus in the health and hygiene area, and that will, be like a Procter & Gamble and Unilever, right, that liquid hand soaps, dish soaps, those types of things. So a fluid-based company, but our big focus is not only to create the device or container, it's to be turnkey. So it's not only just making a product and moving on, it's really making sure that we can help our customers get to market. So we call it risk-free and turnkey. The risk-free is that we're putting fluids in a flexible container, so as compared to rigid, seems very reliable. We make flexible products and do really as good as a rigid. So that's the risk-free side of it. And then the turnkey is from making the product all the way to helping our customers get to their markets and win in their marketplace.
Sounds interesting. Tell us about you. What has made you the leader that you are today?
Yeah, I mean, that's hopefully we have a long time, but it's in general, I had always wanted to have my own business. I always had an entrepreneurial spirit from the time I could remember, and it mostly was driven early on by economics, just putting money in my pocket as early as 13 and 14 years old. Me and my friends would head up to convenience stores, wash windows, mop floors, and just put good work ethic in to get money. But over the long haul, I just started to meander through my career and my journey, and realized there's something inside me that really needed to create and inspire, challenge, and energize value in the world. And so as I've shifted from just the focus on money to creating real value and finding ways to create value, that's become really just an energizing activity for me. That's not necessarily a career, it's just who I am.
Tell me about that evolution from focused on generating money to creating value.
Yeah, that was it's a bit of introspection. I certainly didn't realize this as I was in it, but there was a few things that drove me. It was probably more, and this is a question I'll ask most of the people that interview with me. You start a resume at college. You don't really start anything behind that, and I'm always intrigued, and I think there's a big influence, bigger influence than what's on that resume is what happened early on in your life. And so if I were to answer that question prior to the resume, two real big influences for me from a career standpoint was my dad and my grandmother. And I didn't really know my grandfather, but he had come out of the World War II with a master's in civil engineering, and started up his own company and built a nice business, and afforded his kids an opportunity to kind of continue on and do what they wanted to do. And the family decided, or at least my dad and his two sisters did not decide to really go to school. They kind of started their own little ventures, but never really went anywhere. And I just remember my grandmother somewhat bitter about that activity, and that they were ungrateful for what they were given. And that I obviously felt it as a child, not having what other people had. I wouldn't say I was poor growing up in the western suburbs of Chicago, but I certainly felt within my community I had less than others. So I felt that, and I had my grandmother telling me these things. So I early on, I had kind of made the decision. I'm like, I need to build this back for grandma, right? I need to build the generational wealth back for my grandmother. And that's kind of where maybe it started. When I think back of like what drove me to start going down that journey, coming out of, or maybe a little bit, really didn't really turn it on until I was about 22. Kind of meandered through college for a bit, trying to figure out how to pay for it and how to and what I wanted to do. So
from your grandmother and your early life experience, you acquired a desire to generate some generational wealth,
yeah.
to create some wealth. How did that impact you as a leader?
Yeah. There's some positives and some negatives in that, because what I believe was motivating me then was more of a, let's call it a grudge, right? It was a bit of bitterness myself to say, man, I've come from nothing, and I'm gonna get this back because I didn't have anything. And so for a long time, that's what drove me, is just to kind of prove to other people that I could do it.
Prove to your grandmother?
Yeah, my grandmother, proved to my dad
Mm-hmm.
that that there was an opportunity there, that he didn't invest in me, right, and I could do that. He didn't have the means to really invest that heavily, and I was the oldest of six, so there wasn't, because there wasn't the means, right? He didn't invest in a lot of our education, very little, and our success and our future, right? So there was a bit of bitterness there, and that drove me for quite some time, and it can work to a certain extent, but I think what I've really realized, and where the epiphany started to happen, and is that I needed to turn that into gratitude. So when I is able to actually be grateful for all those activities that happened in my life, truly be grateful, not just say, yeah, thank you, Dad. I literally had the conversation with him about 3 years ago. I just sat him down and just said, I need to understand. And when he told me the story, it was just like a complete switch for me in my ability to be grateful for the things that have happened in my life that allowed me these experiences along this journey that can help me be a solid leader. Because I think the best leaders, and what I aspire to be, is as authentic as possible, right? And so those are people I want to follow. I want to know people's story. I want to know that they authentically care. I want to know that they authentically want to actually create value in the world, not just chase financial means or whatever worldly means. There's creating some sort of value in the world. And once that conversation happened, it was almost like a light switch went off of my ability to feel empathy and gratitude for, what my dad had to go through, and ultimately understand that not everything's going to be perfect, and everybody has these parts of their journey. And being bitter versus being grateful, it's just a totally different energy about you. And that made a switch just in a lot of outcomes, without really focusing on business tactics or anything like that, right?
So it sounds like you might have started down your journey of leadership with I want to do this to make money for me, but that somehow that and some bitterness associated with it evolved into maybe an epiphanal moment, switched to you want to create wealth that was a much more external, a much more things that you wanted to do much more broadly than just good for you, that is now driving the way you approach leadership. Is that accurate?
I think that's fair, right? It also helped me become very introspective of what is it that I love doing. When I think about energy, and I think that's one of the things. Instead of managing your time, manage your energy. I try to find where those little snippets along the road of my journey of where I was most energetic and where was I in flow. And those little spots in my life were areas that I need to do more of, right? And so that part of that process helped me start to dissect where I think I can create the most value. And that's what I've talked about already, inspiring, challenging, creating, and innovating. And so I try to spend as much as my time in those four areas as I possibly can. And whether that's in Vonco or acquiring a business or creating the next new innovation or helping an individual through coaching, all that just fuels me, more than my nutrition and fitness. So I just try to stay in that zone as much as I can. So I'm deliberate about what I want to do and choose those areas to focus on. So that part of that process, part of that journey, part of that introspection led to that more of really what kind of, it's bad. You've heard this a lot, right? What's your purpose, right? And it's sometimes very difficult to actually have an activity to say, what is your purpose? It's part of it's just part of the process is finding that purpose. But I think I can find it usually by looking back. Where was I most energetic? Where was I just super excited about everything that I was doing?
Well, you've mentioned two things there: the being in flow and energy, and these four areas that are important to you. I can envision some of the listeners thinking, flow and energy. This sounds sort of what's he got a mantra here? He's going to start chanting. That sounds a little. Talk about flow and energy. What does that mean to you?
Yeah, so maybe I'll start with energy. I said a little quip there, right? Is don't manage your time, manage your energy, right? Time's fixed, right? We don't know when it's going to end for us, but it's everyone has the same amount of time. The only controllable part then is your energy, and so I'll spend time, obviously filling my own cup on my health, nutrition and fitness, so that I can be as energetic as possible from a physical perspective. But I also, this will go into flow. It's an example, for instance, and we've used this before, is just think about it. You're sitting on your couch, you're tired, you're falling asleep, watching some boring show at 9:30 p.m. and you're dozing off, and all of a sudden the lotto comes on and you just won the lottery. You thought you were ready for bed, you thought you were tired, you thought you were exhausted, but you've just won the big lotto of $500 million. What happens to your energy, right? You've completely shifted your energy, and you're excited. You'll probably stay up all night talking about what you're going to do with that $500 million. And so it's amazing, right? With a thought like that, you kind of end up in flow state in that, because that's what's excited you. And so obviously I'm not very deliberate about trying to win the lotto, but it's just an extreme example of how your energy can shift. So when I think about that and how can I apply that on day-to-day life, it's where are those areas that you get super excited about and you end up in this energetic mode, and it's effortless. That's where flow comes in, and the work is just you might just be there for 12 hours and you just haven't even realized it. So how does someone like Elon Musk do it time and time again? Because he works on what excites him, and tries to cut out the stuff that drains you.
So one of the keys I'm hearing to being a good leader is finding ways to find the activities that you're naturally excited about, that there's naturally energy. It doesn't take a lot of effort to focus on it because it's just what you want to do.
That's a fair statement there. Yeah. I mean, we all have, and this is, you live in a utopia, or you've gotten yourself point in your career. You can do that now. I've got a boss that tells me I've got to do these things. I don't like it. I've got things I've got to do that I don't like. I've got to maintain a household and pay the bills and things like that. Those things certainly drain me. But what I do with those is batch them. And so you just say, all right, I'm going to block my calendar and I'm going to do these things and I've got to do them and get that out. But don't let those loops stay open because you don't like it, right? Batch those things, get them done. Open loops drain your energy as well. I need to do this. I need to do that. That constantly goes through your mind. So close those loops as well. But batch the things that drain your energy and just get it out of the way.
So I love teaching. I must own I don't love grading exams. So batch those exams. Okay, I got the exams. Don't put them off. Get them graded. Check it off. Done. And then move into the things that you thoroughly enjoy.
Yeah, that's a great example right there. Yes, there's got to be things probably in everybody's job that drain them. And so, my sense is that if you kind of keep putting them off, and you don't batch them, you don't plan time for them, right? Then it's an open loop that'll drain you more over time because it stresses you out that those things need to be done, but I hate doing it, and so it's an open loop.
How do you apply that as you're leading others, as you're helping others figure out how to do that?
Yeah. So first of all, it's figure out what you want to do, right? So I had to do that work to say, where do I want my time to be spent? And there really should be 2 or 3 things, and it depends where you are in your entrepreneurial journey. And, if in some cases you've got to wear all the hats, but what you want to try to do is work towards the 2 or 3 skills you have in your business and see if you can get other people that supplement the rest. And then I try to find out what my team's purpose is or what they feel they get in flow doing, and position those folks to be as successful as possible by allowing them to stay in their flow state and not be distracted by the things that drain them. So it's a bit of an understanding and working with your team to do those activities.
So are you doing that when you build your team, that you're trying to make sure there's somebody who's in the flow and energetic about the things that drain you so that everybody can be making their contribution and the whole gets done?
Yeah, I mean, a great example, the book Traction or Entrepreneurial Operating System, is where you have the visionary, usually isn't the same person as the integrator, right? It's 2 different energies, quite frankly, of creating the vision, driving the business, and then someone kind of going around and actually implementing and executing the strategy. So that's another extreme example of exactly that. So the answer is yes. We do a fair amount of analysis, use the disc analysis actually to try to understand where people have their natural and adapted energies, and then of course then the technical skills that we need to supplement with. But the answer is yes on the inbound, and then also Jim Collins put them in the right seats once they get in, and you start to learn. It's difficult, it's not a perfect. It doesn't always come out exactly. I mean, you can see the trends in it, but you don't know all the details of what drives them early on in the interview process. But we try to get there, and then as you watch them their career unfold, you're able to start positioning them, and you can see where they want to spend their time.
It sounds like self-awareness, self-reflection is an important part of leadership from your perspective.
For sure. And I would add self-development. I think that where I ended up getting stuck, and it wasn't like I was progressing in my career, but I didn't feel like I was progressing at the pace I wanted to, or the progress wasn't there, just wasn't necessarily fulfilled with what I was achieving until I just spent a lot of time developing myself. And then not just in business. I'd always done that, right? So I had an engineering degree we're talking about. I have an MBA. And so I've been reading every business book. And so there's been a lot there, but it's truly this what I'm talking about now is where you dive into yourself to develop yourself and understanding what makes you tick. You know, some of the things that the self-doubts, the imposters, you know, all those things that are there for so many people in business that you know, you forget about, right? The business books are, you know, you're watching these things, but you have to go inside yourself a bit to figure it out. So I'd add self-development to that, and that's a big trend for me this year with my team is what are you doing for yourself? You know, whether even if it's fitness and nutrition or you know, how are you developing yourself as a person? Because I want my leadership team to be able to have, you know, basically their cup overflowing. I would wake up when I felt unfulfilled. I would wake up with this image in mind. I have this image in one of the talks I give in the presentation of a bucket coming out of a pool, but then there's a giant hole on the side of it. So I'd wake up most mornings if I could sleep at night. You know, as an entrepreneur, you get a little stressed out. And I'd wake up in the morning full, ready to tackle a day, but I felt like people would just take from me, right? Take my energy, take my time, take my energy from me. I let that happen. You know, my time, I dedicated my time to them. And, right? How do I help them? And I didn't pour back into myself. And so when I started to think about it, the image I have now is a big cup, and you're pouring and pouring and pouring and pouring. And really then if I keep pouring into myself, it's going to overflow at some point. And that overflowing is a lot more plentiful that I can give the world and create value from that energy coming out of that overflowing cup. And so when I shifted that around, focus on myself in the morning, the health, it's like my morning routine shifted around to say that I'm going to start and make sure I'm solid. And then everybody gets helped after that. It's like the mask on the plane, right? You know,
right.
Put yours on first and then help other people's. It literally is a better model. You can be a lot more helpful that way, coming from a position of energy versus a position of drained.
And now a few words about some of the programs and services offered by the UW-Oshkosh College of Business.
The future of business is data-driven. Employers in every sector need people who can analyze large amounts of data, think critically to understand its impacts, and work with teams to convert insights into actions. The University of Wisconsin-Oshkosh College of Business offers a graduate-level data analytics certificate to provide the most current and applicable skills in this area of high demand. In just 9 months, you will learn about the most important strategies, tactics, and methods of analyzing data, and put yourself in a position to advance your career. The Data Analytics Certificate can also serve as a starting point into the MBA Professional Program. Learn about the curriculum, program start dates, tuition, and more by visiting uwo.sh/data analytics. That's uwo.sh/DATAANALYTICS.
Let's talk about both aspects of that, the dumping water in the cup and keeping it from draining out too quickly. How do you have time for that? You're a leader, you're busy, there's lots of challenges in the organization, you're married, you got kids, you got all kinds of stuff going on in life. How do you find time for self-care, if you will?
Yeah, no, and I didn't think I had it before, right? I always felt that there's just no way. I don't, for people that do that, I have no idea how they do it. I really felt that way. And it was a complete mind shift to look at it from another angle. And it was this energetic angle is like they have something that I don't have. And it became apparent to me that I woke up with the business in mind. And so when I woke up, I grabbed the phone, let's check all the emails, let's understand what's going on, what happened last night. My manufacturing business runs around the clock. Answer those emails, hurry up, get in the shower, get to work, and get going. And so hopefully if I get there early enough, I can get out of there soon enough, and then I can focus on my relationships. I can focus on my health. I can maybe do a little bit of self work, right? So
If there were time left at
if
the
there's
end of the
time
time.
left, right? And so at some point, I'll do enough so I can have enough, and then when I have enough, then I can become the person I wanted to be. So it was all about doing activity for business to try to generate the generational wealth back, and then I didn't even know what that number was, by the way. And so it just was what I did, right? And so I just kind of Groundhog Day did that every day. And what ends up happening is there's 5 areas really: your business, your let's call it charity or abundance or wealth, your relationships, your health, yourself. Something's going to give, and that's what happened to me, right? I was sporadic with my health. I didn't have any health events, but my relationships started to dissolve, and I ended up getting a divorce because that's just how I managed life over and over again. And so that event triggered for me that I have to look at something different. I have to do something different because it didn't leave me very fulfilled, obviously, in life. So I flipped that around. And so when I take that business and I say, the first thing I'm going to do is focus on myself when I wake up in the morning. I'm going to get that out of the way. And it's just a different feeling than of accomplishment that you've already accomplished something. In business, there's always going to be something to create more value, right?
Right.
But just doing something for myself. So I get up, put my feet on the floor, say, happy to be alive, smile, and then get up and go do my workout routines, hit the sauna, hit the usually a cold shower, right? Gives me a little more energetic. And, it's just amazing with 45 minutes. That's all 45 minutes. The difference that routine, my morning routine, has made in my life about focusing on myself and my health before I get there. For my relationships too, what I do there is I literally block time on my calendar now that here I'm going to focus on relationships. And so each time that comes around on my calendar, it's usually somebody else. I want to plan a date night. I want to plan some time with my buddy Paul. I want to plan a vacation with my kids. And so I will actually have that on my calendar to block out to make sure I spend that time doing those things. And by doing that, I'm more fulfilled. My cup is filled, and that makes me a better leader. And business is all the way at the end. It's still a lot of time I spend on business, but it's now like super quality time, right? They get the best of me, not the last of me, right?
So it sounds like by putting yourself first in some ways, you're actually able to bring more to your leadership roles.
For sure. That's exactly right? I'm more level-headed. I'm not anxious. It's a balanced approach. So, look, there's going to be opportunity and there's going to be challenges in business. I've been doing it long enough. Whether I work for somebody or I had my own business, they've been there just the same. They're all there to help you on your journey, and they help you get better at creating value. The opportunities, do you jump on them or not? Take the risks. The challenges, you learn from them and potentially create more value some other time. So you can get knocked off course by that, or you can treat it as learning. And so I think it's how grounded are you when those things hit you is how you react, and your team's watching. They're watching what you do and how you react and how you respond, and that makes a big difference. And so the more grounded and centered you are and fulfilled in life, the better leader you can be in those opportunities and challenges.
You talked about not only making sure you're dumping water in the bucket, but a lot of other people taking. It sort of reminds me of the Robert Frost line, time is the most valuable coin of our lives. Be careful lest you let somebody else spend it for you. How have you kept other people from spending that coin for you? How have you controlled how you're spending your energy?
Yeah, I didn't do a good job of that for a long time. It's a very unfulfilling place to be, where you think that you need to do things for others more than yourself. And I didn't realize it. I felt like that's what a leader should do. I should get in there. I'm having trouble on a printing line or a converting line in manufacturing. I'm going to hop out there and I'm going to roll up my sleeves and go help them. So, it was, I think, again, it's mostly mindset, because I felt like that's where I needed to be, and people needed to see me do that. And, gosh, the owners out here, we need to be out here, type thing. And, and that could go on and on and on. Right. And so, from the standpoint of shifting it, it's mostly mindset, and had to realize that I don't create a lot of value for the world by sitting out there solving some of these problems. There's a lot better people than me to solve those problems. It's finding those areas, again, back to the flow of where I need to spend my time. So that was a big part of it. Some of the tactical things that I do is that blocking the calendar, right? Is actually, my calendar is probably full of more things of I want to do myself than meetings with people, because it's easy. If you keep a lot of white space on there, people will just start putting meeting after meeting after meeting on your calendar. What is it? Be intentional, right? Be intentional about what you want to achieve, and that you show me your calendar. I'll show you what's important to you. And it was interesting, right? Because I had meeting. I don't have my kids on there. I don't have, my girlfriend on there. I don't have those things on my calendar. I'll tell you what's important to you is your meetings at your business are more important than coming home and being here for dinner. And so I shifted that, right? That's the tactical thing I've shifted. Said, relationships are on my calendar. Planning, what some of my dreams are on that calendar, and thinking about that. Some of the investments, creating the next new product, innovation is on my calendar. Just spending time thinking about the next innovation or launching the innovation, creating. So those are the things that fuel me. And so it's literally the tactic that I do to try to prevent people from trying to steal that time and knocking me out of flow.
It sounds like you've been very strategic about thinking about how to create more energy in your life, and then how to utilize that energy in your leadership roles. And while it may sound a little self-centered, it actually has resulted in you being a much better leader.
For sure. It is weird, right? Because the selfless leader is a term I used a lot. Servant leadership, you hear, and I still think that exists, but it's flipped on its head of how to get there, because you can't be a servant leader is the mindset shift for me if you're drained, right? You really, you're energetically, you might be doing it, but you're not in it, right? And so over time, people feel that. And so that's probably the biggest shift in servant leadership, is that I can be better for other people by focusing a bit on making sure my energy's in good shape first.
Interesting. Fascinating. What was your first leadership role?
Yeah, so this is where, I'll start a little bit before that. So coming out of high school, it was difficult for me to figure out how to pay for college. I ended up I liked construction. I started in architecture at community college, went to Iowa State for construction engineering. And anyway, when I went there, I came back after 3 semesters with only about 22 credits out of you should have 45-ish, maybe in engineering, maybe a bit more, and a lot of debt. And so I had to go back to work. So I started what got me excited about construction. I was in a cabinet shop, but my buddy got a job in a print shop, and he said, well, I'm making $9 an hour. I said, well, I'm only making $6. So I'm going to go to my foreman and say, I want to make more money. He said, good luck. I hope you have this job. Well, luckily they were hiring. So that's where I ended up in the industry I'm at now. And they were gracious enough along the way to when I was going out to Iowa State, to come back, train a bit. So I was very involved with the business. I enjoyed it. Back to that work ethic. So they have this young kid, 18 years old, coming in here. He works really hard. He uses his brain once in a while. So they were excited. So I kind of started doing a few things around the print shop and, organizing, setup conditions and things like that. And ultimately, there was an opportunity to get into a lead man position at 22. And that was probably my turning point because I was in debt. I was really going nowhere for 4 years with my college degree. I was now in a print shop that I wanted to be in construction. So I just felt really stuck. I was really in a down point, to be honest with you. And I'm like, I'm gonna apply for this thing. And of course, there's people that have been doing it for a long, long time. I'm up against, and
Right.
and ultimately, somebody else got it, and so there was another down point for me. I'm at 22, I'm never gonna make it in my career. But when you're that age, it's a big deal. And he ultimately backed out, and they didn't re-interview me. They just gave it to me. So as the second candidate. That's kind of where I said, look, maybe there's something here. There's a few people that were there that believed in me, felt good, and that was really the first time that I got some sense of self-worth through my career, and that is another good and bad thing in the grand scheme of life, because that's where I kept going back to try to get my self-worth along the way, is moving up that corporate ladder. Again, good news and bad news. I learned a lot along the way. But ultimately, that's when it was 22 years old. I got a lead man at a company called PrintPack, very similar actually to Ransom's business that he was in.
What'd you learn from that position?
Oh, yeah, that was good. I was young, aggressive. I was a real hard worker. Was working along, manufacturing, ambitious, right? So I was probably a bit too aggressive with people. So I learned how to kind of temper, how to motivate and inspire people. It wasn't at that point, my leadership was, how I was raised as and watched how my dad did it with me, right? If things got out of line, right, you get yelled at. I didn't spank anybody, but
That's good.
Probably wouldn't have had a job. But that was kind of my style at first, and you learn real quick that it's more of influence than it is authoritarian, and really adapted my style quite a bit there, but still merged. I never gave up on the, just work hard and move quick and think through things as quickly and solve problems, right? Root causes of problems. Those are all things that early on in my career I was pretty good at, and so once I started to merge that and maybe understand a little bit of the difference of how to motivate and inspire people, it got a little bit better. But that took a few years.
And you said you learned it quickly, but a lot of folks struggle with this question of influence, motivation versus power and fear. Why did you come to the conclusion that the influence, the motivation, was a better approach than trying to motivate people with power and with fear?
Yeah. Well, quite frankly, I didn't have the the power to actually really do anything anyway. I suppose I could influence that, but and so irritating people or threatening is certainly, at that point I didn't really realize some of the things with fear, but ultimately I just felt it that when I could actually convince or inspire or motivate somebody to do something, it seemed to go a lot better, where we had a shared goal to accomplish something so early on. But to answer your question, as I've done many times over and reflected on many times over now, is again energy. So fear, anger, shame, guilt, all those are real low energy points, right? And so if you have that as a fear, that activity is done with very, very low energy. So you're not going to get people's best. It's going to come from a place that, yes, I get it, but it's, I'm only doing it from being afraid of losing my job. But if you can do it in peace, or joy, and this is why, and create a shared goal and acceptance. Those are much higher energetic emotions, and so as people accomplish that, it is inspiring. Hence why, what motivates me now, those lessons. That lesson, I remember the one press operator that I learned a great lesson on. Uh, you know what he's asking me why I need to do it, and I told him because I told you to, and I'm your boss, right? Who gets inspired by that, right? So that's a lesson that I learned early on, that and quite frankly, I don't think he probably laughed at that, to be honest with you. But even if it did strike any fear, it's just a horrible spot to be aligned with a business. My business now is our core value is we care more, and so we care more about ourselves, we care more about each other, we care more about our customers and the patients and consumers we ultimately serve. And as we think through that, now we can't motivate with fear if we care about each other, right? Fear is a really scary emotion, right? And when people are really in their best, it's when they're in peace and joy, and feel comfortable and confident that they can take the risks.
So you really try to focus on the positives because you feel it gets you more out of employees in the long run.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, self-directed, right? If you know that people are coming from a good spot and understand the vision, they're inspired and feel safe to do things on the behalf of creating value of the organization, they come from a much better spot, and it's self-directed. I mean, things happen much faster than, if there's going to be fear, right? I've got to spend a lot of my own energy creating that fear. If I can create an environment of peace and joy and low anxiety and safety, all of a sudden stuff just starts happening in an exponential format.
You one of the terms you used in there was feel safe. How do you create an environment where the employees feel safe to challenge, to come up with their solution?
Yeah, well, team-based activity is first of all. I mean, there's so many activities to be. You can start with the core values. One, you got to at least start stating what you want, and then you need to start surrounding yourself with people that emulate those. But allow people to get together in teams that allow them to speak that, and make sure that we use examples of where this is somebody's idea. Look at how it's gone. Or if something went poor, yeah, we'll talk about it. We need to fix it. But you're not seeing, any disciplinary action or things like that. It's, hey, we've got a shared goal. If everybody's on board that, yes, this was a shared goal, we didn't want to create this issue to begin with, we're all good. If you've got people that don't have shared goals, that you need, obviously as a business, you need to react to that. But we don't need to be threatening. We just have to say, do you not share this goal? And maybe this isn't the right spot for you then. But if you're all coming from a spot of a shared goal, I think there's sometimes fear of in leaders that they don't, that people aren't as concerned about it as you. And it might be the case, but if there is a shared goal, I know that my folks are as interested in creating value as I possibly could have. And so we come from a good spot there then.
So it sounds like you start with, are we all trying to achieve the same thing? And then when something gets off the rails, how do we collaboratively fix it? Not focused on fixing blame, but how do we get back to our shared goal? Is that accurate?
Yeah, that's very accurate. That is the key. Do we have a shared goal in whatever maybe it's increasing revenue, or maybe it's driving cost out, more tactical things. And then when someone makes a decision on the contrary, or something happens, are we aligned, right? Are we on the same page on the shared goal? That's the first thing. So now we come back to alignment. If we are, then we're both not happy with those results, and we're both now collectively going to try to fix whatever issue it is or decision that was made. The thing that people can control is decisions in business. So what decisions were made along the way that we can now align on as we debrief on anything that was positive or negative.
How do you think the folks in the organization would describe your leadership style?
Yeah, I think they would say caring. I mean, that's something we talk about.
We care
constantly.
more.
We care more, right? And so it's. I was just at our Christmas party, and it's not only just the people in the organization. What was really touching for me, and maybe where I felt I've really turned a corner on my own journey, is that I had spouses coming up to me telling me about how much their husband or wife enjoy working in our organization, and when that happens, I'm like, one, they're going home and talking about it, but two, this person's up saying, I've had many bosses. I've never seen a boss get up and celebrate their people in a party in front of other spouses, dance around with them, and just enjoy that. And so it's just amazing. And so I just was a really, really good feeling to not only have employees say that to me. We do a culture survey. We were awarded great places to work this last year. So a lot of nice accolades. Yeah, thank you. It is cool. Not nice accolades directly from the employees, but also to hear it, being talked about at home. That's pretty cool. And I guess I shouldn't be too surprised. I mean, a lot of people go home and talk about their work, but not necessarily in a good way. And so maybe that's what's fun.
And now a few words about some of the programs and services offered by the UW-Oshkosh College of Business.
Students in the University of Wisconsin-Oshkosh MBA Executive Program get a first-hand look at global business in action during a 10-day international study tour, visiting 2 countries and exploring diverse cultures around the world. Rated one of the most impactful elements of the executive program, cohorts have toured top-tier businesses in Accra, Ghana, Beijing, China, Nagasaki, Japan, Panama City, Panama, Seoul, South Korea, Stockholm, Sweden, and more. Be part of something bigger than yourself and experience education beyond classroom walls. Connect with an MBA advisor today by emailing mba@uwosh.edu to learn more about the MBA Executive Program and upcoming international study tours. That's mba@uwosh.edu. It's time to achieve more.
Talk about that a little bit more. I find that many employers don't put much focus on the significant other, the spouse. Sounds like that's important to you. Any other thoughts on why that matters?
Well, sure. I mean, here's something that I want to continue to focus on. I mean, let's think about why we have employees and what do employees want to achieve anyway, right? So many times why they're working is because maybe similar to me is create some generational wealth for my family, or maybe there's other reasons they're trying to buy a house. They want a vacation home. They want a new car. These are important family decisions that occur. And I actually just had a conversation recently with one of my senior leaders, is similar to me, right? I never defined what does the generational wealth look like? What does that number look like? And I was talking to him, and he always wants more, right? He's like, the raise wasn't enough, the bonus wasn't enough, right?
Right.
But okay, well, what's enough? What have you defined with your family? And let's sit down and let's talk about how the business can be successful and you're successful. And the more I can do that with, I don't sit down with every individual, but the more I can put that into the framework of our organization, that we care enough to know, what do you want to achieve in your life, which is a family decision, right? It matters with the spouse. What are the kids? I'm first generation American. I want to get my kids through college, right? All right, let's sit down and have the conversation of how to achieve that, and let us work together. Shared goal again, right? What's the shared goal? You get what you're looking for in life and for your family, and the business is creating the value that we think it should.
So you're defining shared goal, fascinatingly, in two ways. One, does everybody share the goals you have for the business? Is that a shared goal? And is the business sharing the goals that the employees have for themselves and their families?
Well, I wouldn't call them mutually exclusive, right? You want to hit your shared goals with your family. The business hits their shared goals. We help you. They both help each other, right? So
there's a
tied
synergy
together.
there.
Right? Exactly.
Okay. Do you think you were a born leader?
That's a good question. Yeah, I would say yes. But I don't, I don't think it's just a matter to me if people feel they weren't born a leader, I think it's just an I am statement. So I do, and let me explain. So maybe not. It's a tough one for me. I go back and forth on this thing a lot, because you got, as you listen to feedback, you got people say it's very natural, and then there's things that I probably feel more inspired is to be an I am. And so I'll give you an example. I started running probably in I don't know, 2012. I want to say right before I bought the business, I started running. I would do a 5K, then I moved up to a 10K. And when I first started, I would not have associated myself with being a runner. And so I did it enough years where people started calling me a runner. So I started associating myself with being a runner. And so I wanted to, I keep putting these challenges out there for my fitness. It's part of my creed to say I'm always training for something. So I've started doing triathlons, which the running is fine, the biking okay, swimming, if you stop swimming you drown, right? So and so I would not associate myself with being a swimmer. And
it does have some motivation to it, though.
There's motivation there, yeah. But I kept telling myself, I'm not a swimmer. Well, I did a triathlon last year. I made it, but I trudged through the swimming like I'm not a swimmer. And so I just told myself this year I'm gonna up it. I'm gonna go farther, and is that I'm a swimmer. And you start creating this vision of that you are actually, I am a swimmer. It's amazing the difference of how I feel I float in the pool. It's the silliest thing, but it seems to work. And so back to the leadership question is that the more I ended up associating myself with being a leader, the more I became a leader, I guess. And so that's where, yes, there's probably some things that people have natural personalities towards that are perceived as leadership, but the more along the way you associate yourself with being a leader, I think it doesn't matter. You can overcome any of the perceptions of personalities within leadership, and we've seen examples over and over again of all types of personality styles that are great leaders.
Great leaders. Any historical figures that you would look at and say, now there's a great leader that I think I've learned something from?
Yeah. It's interesting. One of the early leaders that, and it would be in business, that inspired me early on as I went through engineering and MBA school was Jack Welch, coming out of the 80s and 90s. And his book, Straight from the Gut, his book talked about the 4 E's, and not surprisingly, the way this conversation went, it starts with energy, right? What is your own energy? What is your ability to energize others? And then he called it edge. It's like, can you make good decisions when it really counts? When you're on the edge, right? Can you make those good decisions, and then can you execute? So those are the 4 E's. And so those stuck with me, and obviously he did some nice things during that period of time, and really just followed leadership, right? He was enamored by that concept of leadership as well, all the way up to his death. And so I really respected that, and I think that's, he learned a lot as well. He was young in his career as he got thrusted into some leadership roles in a really big company, and made some mistakes and continued to learn and did it for for every minute he was on this earth. So yeah, he really inspired me early on.
Very good. What's the hardest part of being a leader?
Yeah, I mean, I'm going to answer it of what I would have said, and it was just you feel like you're the only one that cares as much as you do, and so that's the shift in my thought process, is that now I just enjoy the journey. So as far as running the company, it's or leading the company, or coaching somebody else, I'm doing the things that put me in flow and create energy for me. So I don't like to think about it as being overly hard anymore, right? It's part of, I guess in my own mind is being, being who I want to be. And if I didn't want to do that, if I didn't want to be a leader and it was hard, I wouldn't do it anymore, right? I want to be very deliberate about it. But there are, I guess, tactically speaking, right, it is tough. There are a lot of people that want your time, and you have to constantly be deliberate about where you can spend your time.
So that multiple folks competing for your time is and managing that's one of the hard parts of being a leader.
Yeah.
Is leadership for everybody? You've talked about self-image, and I perceive myself as a swimmer. I'm swimming better. Also talked about being in a spot where there's energy and flow. You sort of think about both of those. Are there some people that leadership just isn't for them?
I don't think so. I mean, at very least, you have to lead yourself through this life and navigate. I just had a great conversation with my daughter. She's 17 years old, and she's like, I don't know how I'm going to do this. I don't know exactly how I'm going to get through college or where I want to go and how I'm going to take care of myself. I'm like, oh my goodness, 17 years old, you got so many worries about all these things. And all I said to her is like, look at all the activities you've already accomplished. She's figured out what curriculums she wants to take. She's kind of declared a major. She loves early education. She's positioning herself to spend more time with kids. She's in a tech school already. I said, look at how you've navigated already to this point. You've led yourself to this point. You've done it every time there's been a challenge. You're still here. You're still going. You're still very successful. Draw on those things that have led you in the past to know that you're going to figure it out, right? You're going to lead yourself through the next uncertainty, because I promise there's going to be uncertainty, but you've got already a nice resume of dealing with that. So you have to minimally, in general, lead yourself. And if you can lead yourself, this is kind of part of my point, right? If you're filling your own cup and it's overflowing and you're leading and doing your own self-fulfillment, you can be a leader.
It sounds like you lead some from your feeling, your perceptions, but you've read a lot. Is leadership more an art or a science?
So I started everything by the numbers, right? And it was interesting. I was just talking to one of my LT members too, and we were at a little social gathering at I think it was like an annual plan, and so some of the shareholders are there, and we went out and had some dinner, and we were just kind of standing around the bar, and he was talking to me about it, and I said, where I would love to be is really just leading by my feelings, right? That's where I really want to be. And the more you trust your gut and your instinct, it's like another little reward to yourself, whether you're right or wrong. It's kind of where when you have that nagging feeling, I should have done this, I should have done that. It's like a vote against yourself, right?
Right.
And it's like, why do I not trust myself? Right? Something inside me is telling me I should be doing something different, but yet I did it. So it like kind of eats away at you. And so whether the data is telling you that or not, but yeah, I mean, look, I don't think there'd be anybody on my leadership team if you were here pulling him and saying that he doesn't care about numbers. I have a fair amount of my KPIs and the cadence to that. I need some information to help make good decisions. But there is more and more of me that wants to lead by feelings.
How would you talk to a new leader, young person thinking about moving in leadership, maybe in a first leadership role? How do you balance that? My gut, my instinct feels like I should but I should also be looking at the numbers. I should be looking at data. How do you balance those?
Yeah. Well, yeah, it is good because I don't want to be blinded that I've been doing this a decent amount of time, and so you build up a fair amount of experience to be able to start trusting your gut. So I think there's probably some areas in my life that the data might have saved me, but it also kind of eats you a little bit by not going with your gut early on. So I think it's a balance to say get the data there so that put it together, but also in the absence of it, go with your instinct. Indecision is tough on people too, I think, right? It's you waffle. It's that open loop that I was talking about earlier, right? If you got that open loop, should I go this way? Should I go that way? Sometimes just try it, figure out and learn, get the experience.
You've mentioned reading. You mentioned Jack Welch's Straight from the Gut. Any other books that you'd recommend to young leaders coming up? This could be useful for you to spend some time with.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know that I'll go too far off the reservation of some really good ones. Good to Great is certainly something that's an interesting one. That is, I'll go two different ways to do it. Because Straight from the Gut was an interesting, Good to Great was an interesting one because of what Collins did in actually assessing, value creation over a long period of time, and then what were the variables between them and their peers that didn't create that value creation. So I thought that was really well done, especially when I read that. That was during my graduate school in the early 2000s, and well done on the level 5 leadership and things of that nature that I didn't quite understand at that point. I didn't have enough experience there. But another one that I like is almost in contrast, and maybe not, as you think about it, but is Blink by Malcolm Gladwell. Yeah, and where people have now, back to trusting your instinct and gut, especially after you've gained the experience along the way, that I don't need to go back. I can almost just feel or sense, what direction this is heading and what decision to make, and that was kind of the concept that he had in that. So those two books are pretty interesting to me for other young leaders, and so yeah, I'd probably spend some time on those two business books. Yeah,
yep.
And Blink is maybe a little bit more worldly than just a pure business book. Yeah.
Yes, it certainly is applicable in other environments. Yeah. I found Blink fascinating.
Yeah.
All right. Any final words of wisdom for leaders, someone coming up in leadership? What's a golden nugget out there for young folks?
Yeah, it's self-development, right? And I briefly mentioned this before, and it goes into this, is develop yourself, but start from the being and then do the things that help you be the person you want to be. I would say where I spent too much time was doing so I could have, and then at some point I'll be, right? So who is the person you want to be? So think about that 5-10 years. Who is that person you want to be? And be it now, right? Position yourself in that. Use your I am statements, the be, I am, and start being that person. Then those things, you'll start doing the things that will help you be, and then ultimately you'll have what you need in life.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Keith,
pleasure.
Thank you very much for spending your time and sharing your introspections with us. It's been very valuable.
Thank you.
And I want to thank you all for joining us with another podcast in the It's Time series. and this one with Keith Smith from Vonco Industries. Thank you very much. Hope you'll tune in next time.
It's Time is a production of the University of Wisconsin-Oshkosh College of Business graduate programs in association with Venture Project Studios. Executive producer, Aaron J. Armstrong. Host, Professor Dale Feinauer. Creative Director, Madison Potratz. Director of Photography, Elazar Kloon. Audio and Video Editor, Elazar Kloon. Marketing Strategy, Tara Larson. Social Media, Anwar Mahana. A special thanks to L Creative, Top View Media, Michael Patton, and the University of Wisconsin-Oshkosh College of Business graduate programs.